This nibble originally aired on RSBANDB Update, episode 837, The Emerald Dark Horse. Enjoy.
So I did the testing, right? I got out a normal set of just like gear that I would take to like Mozcob raids.
Sure.
And I added, because those monsters are immune to poison, I added my Cinderbane gloves to it. I added weapon poison. Vaguely following generals, I used no aura and no familiar for the first couple of these, and just did my normal damage rotation. No crazy switches, all range style. Just using first round, I camped the previous bolts. I just sat on Dragonstone bolts. Did a rotation with no crazy switches, no flanking, none of that. Just a planted feet with a vinegar ring, adrenaline pot, bladebone crossbows, and ended up a little 1,041 damage, 1,041 or 1,041,000 damage. There we go. I wrote that funny. Was my total for 5 minutes on this. So, 208,000 ish was where I was hitting with that.
Okay.
With a pretty modest range rotation. Again, not a DPS expert, right? Your DPS experts are hitting 200,000 without your Bakriminel bolts, without these other things. So I'm experienced, but not an expert. And I mean, yeah, even with canceling my channels, those kind of all that, like trying to be a little sweaty, but not using the switches and the other fun stuff that could really bump that up. I switched to the Bakriminel bolts. So that was 1,041,000 for 5 minutes. When I switched to the emeralds from the D-stones, that went up over 50,000 damage to 1,098,000. So we're up by 57,000 damage just from a bolt switch. Now, given I also was warming up and I'd done a little better with my rotations, it's possible, but that wouldn't increase by 57,000 damage over 5 minutes. So they are definitely better, is what that's seeming to say to me. Again, assuming that I'm using your Arm Incense sticks, your Cinderbanes, and your weapon poison for both of those tests.
That's a 5% damage increase.
It is. And again, I think part of that is my rotation. I will absolutely say I think I did a little bit of a cleaner rotation. Had a few extra rounds of practice from the first time doing that. I'll attribute maybe half that change to my rotation. Maybe. But again, I have well over 200 million experience in mostly in bossing situations where I'm using this setup. My action bar has not changed in a long time. Other than, obviously, changing for greater ricochet. So,
sure.
I'm fairly confident that my rotation is fairly consistent. There's probably a little variation there, but these boosts, like these bolts, are definitely 2 to 3% better when you have the poison boost, at least, than the other things. So that's a change. That's a change in what you're going to be using for your meta setup. The biggest thing, though, is again that setup with the Wyvern crossbow and the Blood Reaver. With you're hitting the thing tons and tons of times. And what I'm thinking happened is that I think the bolts do not activate off of the Reaver because it is not ranged ability.
That would make sense.
It would. So here's what I will say is the craziest part about this, which maybe is even a bigger deal than the bolts, is that with that Reaver and Brew setup, I used full Revo++. I was not doing a single input to do damage to this thing. It was actually, my only inputs were to drink 24 doses Amarak brews over the course of this test, because I had Soul Split on and I was healing from this familiar. So the familiar damage is not tracked in gems, so the familiar damage did not count. But the familiar probably did 25,000 recoil damage, because I healed about 100,000 damage over 5 minutes. Soul Splitting off these things, which, if you can do some quick math on how much Soul Split heals, if the numbers I'm about to say are a little nutty, then my original setup for this is more or less meta setup, with like full tier 92s, tier 99 prayer, the whole 9 yards, doing my custom manual DPS rotation. When I changed to the Wyvern crossbow and added the Reaver and the Zamorak brew, and again, so the poison is now activating 2 or 3 times as often and doing just, again, that massive damage with just the poison, the damage went up to 1,256,000 damage from 1,041,000. So that's over 200, and it's 215,000 more damage per minute, or per 5 minutes, with no inputs. Full Revolution ++. So that's a thing.
That is amazing.
That is straight up 20% more damage with doing way less work.
And you wouldn't be able to, would you be able to do that extra 20% if you were using your Dragonstone bolts or your onyxes?
I was with Dragonstone bolts, actually.
Okay.
Use Dragonstone bolt for that.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
We need to just underscore that the Wyvern crossbow dot that we're talking about is separate from the emeralds for anybody who was wondering about that.
It is an additional poison hit that can activate your cinder. This is not using the emerald bolts. So that's that setup is just a little crazy. The thing that it does require you to be healing, right? It does require you to have less than full hit points. Yeah. And I healed a ton when I was doing this. So you basically need to be either lowering your hit points or at some place like Reg where you take a bunch of damage. Otherwise, it won't work because the Blood Reaver Act won't act. You'll get half as much poison damage and you'll probably be a little below your typical otherwise defense condition. Okay. That said, did the same exact test. And this one is entirely consistent because I used Revolution, so I know the same ability fired in the same order. And the only thing I was doing was drinking Zamorak Brews. I swapped out my Dragonstone bolts for the new Emerald bolts. With this new setup, my damage increased by from 1256 to 1284. So we're talking about 28,000 more damage over 5 minutes. So that, if we want to say that half my damage different from the previous one, that's exactly the same as from the previous test.
So they're consistent, which is good.
They're really consistent, which says it's the abilities doing the damage to the thing that is where the bolts are activating. It's only on your ranged abilities. But, again, it's about 2 to 3% more damage than Dragonstones. Dragonstones are very consistently 2% more. So this is probably 4.5% damage. These bolts add over your other options at the same price point. 4.5% over the other bolts at the same price point, 4.5% over using like your standard Ascension bolts or Blade bolts. Definitely a shift, right? Yeah, this actually puts them better than Onyx bolts.
And let's just take a moment and appreciate here how many emeralds are sitting in people's banks waiting to be crafted on this. Yeah. And I did a bit of a test on patch day and the day after, checking values on this, and it seems as though people hadn't have caught on. You know, the bolts were up a bit, twice a market, but they're still very affordable compared to everything else.
This, again, it's 1% more damage than your Onyx bolts for a quarter of the price. It's so crazy. That these are actually things I was talking about before. You use your Onyx bolts for the last 40% of a boss's health. If they're not poison immune, I'm using these now. This is what my setup's going to be.
Yeah. You can find full episodes of RSBANDB Update right here on this YouTube channel. If you found this video useful or just enjoyed it, like and subscribe or leave a comment.